Welcome everybody to the first Miniature Dragon comic review. As always, on this channel, I'm your host, Daniel Doc Gentry. I am a sex icon for tabletop RPG, and joining me today are two gentlemen from Miniature Dragon and my co-hosts for the show, Alex and Woody. Say hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Hello. Yeah, I figured we get that joke right out of the way.
Somebody had to do it.
Having us, Doc.
So for us, I just want to say thank you and welcome. It is what it is, and I'm glad you're all here. Pardon that little jump there. I was just hitting some buttons just to see everything's working. So anyways, welcome to our comic book review. We were going to go through some comic books. I am an amateur, so I am sitting down with two experts. We're going to see what happens. We will make sure that we're watching. I am watching social media too, so if you'd like to comment on anything that we're saying today, as you do it, I will try to get it on the show. That's Twitter is at MD Reviewcast. And pretty much at MD Reviewcast. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram. The Facebook and Twitters I'll be reading. And we have a Discord channel, which I have the link below above the chat. And it looks like Daniel, one of the actual designer of our layout, is in chat right now. So hi, Daniel. But we don't have lots of time. We've given ourselves 30 minutes, so let's do this. First and foremost, let's jump into Black Panther, Annual number 1.
Yeah, well, obviously we wanted to look at this book because the movie just came out and it's topical, but I was also curious because I've never actually been a Black Panther reader. And so it seemed like a good point to jump in on the series.
Alex?
What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, I definitely have to say that I haven't watched the movie yet, so I'm hoping that there was no spoilers from reading this book. And when I actually get around to it. Okay, good.
No,
well,
definitely
wait,
not.
That's a spoiler.
Oh, no. No, the book was interesting. Being an annuals usually are anthology-type books, and so this one's picking up, right after a major event in the Black Panther series. But I was actually really happy that the context clues were really strong, so you didn't really feel like you were missing anything. And they went out of their way to focus a lot on characters that you would have seen in the movie. So if you're looking for something that's familiar, you'll definitely get it.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of how in Guardians of the Galaxy or some of the various other books, they had comics that just basically expanded the various other characters within the story without going, here, this is what happened within these scenes, or this is the rest of the story.
Yeah, it's actually funny because my favorite part of the story actually didn't deal with the Black Panther, because there was the Agent Everett, I forget his last name, but basically the token white guy in the movie, who was played by Bilbo Baggins, and one of the first story you read is actually about him, and I thought that was probably the most entertaining part of the book. It's he's one of the peripheral characters, but they gave him a front and center story, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I'll add in my little 2 cents here, being the amateur. What I got when I read it, first off, the art is memorizing in this annual. I loved every bit of it. I've got some of the shots coming up on the screen as it goes through. You guys can see what we're talking about. I'm not sure how I feel about the beginning with I had to defeat all the heroes and villains set that he did, walking around with his grandkid. And then the whole it was so easy and now I rule the world kind of thing. It was kind of narcissistic, but I gotta admit I haven't done a ton of stuff with Black Panther before. Again, you guys caught me because I'm an amateur, so from what I got, though, it's an interesting story. I'm gonna go with interesting at this point. And
that one was weird and kind of out of place because that deals with an event with him marrying Storm for the X-Men, which is a marriage that got annulled, and it lasted for a couple of years. It was just a flash in the pan plot story, and then it was nothing. And it's weird that they're going back to that, because they're not married anymore.
Okay.
So I'm kind of with you there. I think it's just kind of a weird what if story, which Marvel likes to do those, where like, what if this happened and this is the results? That's probably the weakest story in there. But again, like you said, the art was amazing, and I thought it was well executed for what it was.
Definitely. It's super interesting. It would be something that I think I would pick up the art and stuff if the story could keep me. Again, the story threw me off a little bit. That whole I can defeat anything was a little overpowered. So one of our viewers says, remember that he's a king. I don't mean to cut you guys off, but we do need to jump into our next one because we do this in short in time. So let's jump straight to Darth Vader.
Now, this is a book that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I'm totally going to get... we're both going to give that 2 thumbs up. I wanted to talk about...
I would say give it a 66 order thumbs up.
Yeah, 66%. Yeah, well, I was a big fan of the old Dark Horse lines when they did those, and then I was very leery about Marvel getting the license back because I did read them in the 70s and I remember what they were like. But they basically put nothing but A-list creators and on the new Star Wars line at Marvel. And this book, I'm not a fan of books about villains, but I will say this is far and away much more entertaining than the solo books that Dark Horse put out for Darth Vader, because he was pretty much just a total son of a bitch, evil, bastard in those books. And this one, there's a lot more humanity in the story, I think.
I think it definitely shows within the corruption of the character, the continuation of like how you see him within the first 3 movies transforming into what he finally becomes within the classic series. New Hope, but Return, and
but they're also showing that crack in his armor that Luke found too, which I thought was really neat.
One of our viewers says that they were terrible before Dark Horse. Do you guys know anything about Darth Vader before Dark Horse? Or?
Well, it's referring to I think it's referring to the old Marvel Comics line in the 70s, which were very much a product of their time. Whereas when Dark Horse got a hold of the comics line, they took Star Wars to a completely new level and treated it seriously rather than as a joke. And not all of the Marvel stories back in the day were really done at the same quality of the movies.
Okay.
like their original portrayal of Yoda was weird.
Well, that was actually based off of the original art assets that were used for the concepts for the movie. That's why there was such a weird looking comparison. So the people that got basically the script for Marvel got the original concept art, opposed to knowing what the final art was going to be. So that's why there was such a weirdness within the original styling of those comics.
Yeah, but as far as with the current comics, one of the things I thought was interesting was how they're incorporating the changes to the to the crystals, where they're specifically going with kyber crystals now, and they're actually representing them as being somewhat sentient. And the crystal that Vader ends up getting a hold of tries to turn him back to the light side, which that whole sequence was really amazing, and how that played out. And then when they burned a bunch of Jedi lightsabers as well at the beginning of the series, you see this explosion of the Force when they're all destroyed, and it's just these really neat ideas that they're incorporating. I mean, I don't know that I necessarily like it all from the changes, because I did like the expanded universe from before, but I said it's A-list creators, well executed. It's certainly better than a lot of the other things coming from Marvel.
Okay. One of our viewers says Dark Horse has a habit of making excellent comments, a lot of excellent writing. And then another one just put up, I read almost every Dark Horse Star Wars.
Sorry,
I look forward to Marvel. I think One Shot is what he meant to say now. It's cool. I'll tell you the Darth Vader ones, because you shot them at me, never read them before. Some of the things I loved, and you guys know me enough to know what I'm going to talk about, but the art. Whoever was doing the penciling, coloring in the end, it was interesting to me how a suit that has no facial expressions, they could bring a facial expression out of it from the drawing in certain aspects.
What that kind of reminded me was in Big Hero 6 with Baymax, you have a part where he goes evil because he doesn't have that must save humanity chip within him. And it's the way that they use angles, how they use lighting, and it was a very similar kind of feel with the way that they portrayed Lord Darth Vader there.
Oh yeah, I thought it was interesting. It was amazing to me. It brought it out. I like the hyperspace drawing, which you guys have seen going through our flip screen here. That was an incredible scene that was drawn. The storyline itself is super captivating. Very few comic books make me guess what's going to happen next. This is one of the few that really did. Like, what's the next step? The interesting story aspects, like when he has that Dagobah reverse thing that happens when he originally tries to bleed the Kyber crystal, and all of a sudden he has this thing where he refuses that, takes his Jedi thing, goes back. Like, I thought that was amazing. It threw me off a little bit.
Yeah.
It is really well done.
Yeah. No, I haven't read a lot of the other Star Wars books. I read a little bit of it, but you know, when we originally in our, you know, this is version 2 of our show. In version 1 that we tried, we had reviewed it, and I just picked the book up just to review it, and it sucked me in, and I've actually continued to read it since then. Like, I think I still have to get caught up in the last 2 issues because of all the craziness getting ready for our last show. But you know, I'm hooked. I love that series, and I hope it continues.
One aspect that I really liked about it was it did actually add some of the lore from, if anyone's familiar with Disney XD, they had a series of various Jedi cartoons, and not to go into major detail, but there was one character that was from that cartoon that has followed through into this comic book, which I thought was pretty interesting. And I like the way that they expanded on that character's interactions with Lord Vader.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I loved it. Let's get to the bread and butter, what we're here tonight for, which was Batman Gotham by Gaslight, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So this is going to be the bread and butter. You're going to notice we're going to talk a little bit longer on this one. But why don't you guys take some time, hit me up from the professional side of what you thought about this. I'd like to start off with Woody, something that you mentioned, because I didn't read the first one. I just read the new one. You said something about how the drawing of Commissioner Gordon was different. I think Woody froze.
I think so.
I did.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah, sorry. Your question again?
You were talking to me about, but I just wanted to start it off with something that you mentioned when I was talking to you about this offline. Was when you were talking about how it was weird that they changed the drawing of Gordon from the first original to the new one. And if we want to start it off, let's do that.
Yeah, totally. Well, what it is, you know, whoever was editing the clearly didn't have attention on the art direction, but Mike Mignola was the original artist. I presume that he wasn't available for the second one, so they had to bring in a different guy, and the other guy does whatever he does, and whoever was the editor didn't care to keep consistent. But it's like, it was interesting to me that there's nothing wrong with the second artist. He was just fine, but it was just like, it's literally looked like James Gordon aged 20 years in between part 1 and part, and it was just like, wow, that, you know, the Jack the Ripper was a really tough case for him, you know. And you know, there were a couple of other inconsistencies, but you know, the James Gordon difference, and apparently he turned into Teddy Roosevelt.
Okay, Alex, what do you think?
Yeah.
Definitely within the 3 parts of the first series of by Gaslight, I enjoyed that very much. That was definitely my favorite. I think mostly because of the art style, because I definitely love Hellboy and some of the various other things that he's done.
It's good for horror.
One, even with its more realistic style, I definitely say that, yeah, I like the parts of like having the little cameo scene of Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, but it didn't suck me in as much because I really liked how they used tabloids, like little articles within newspapers, to basically set part of the scene from the first part of the comic. And then as the animated, you know, at first I was kind of a little disappointed that it wasn't in, that Hellboy style. But at the same time, I really liked it. I thought It had a nice kind of look. One thing that I definitely thought during part of it, the guy that played Bruce Wayne, to me, he was trying to emulate Adam West's style of doing Bruce Wayne's voice pattern.
Yeah, I didn't get that at all from it. But that's also a Batman they've had before in other films.
Mm.
I wanted to respond real quick. Your mention of the cameo with Sherlock Holmes, I thought that was, again, an example of poor editing on part of DC editorial, because if you read the first one, you know that Batman apprenticed under Sherlock Holmes. And shoving Sherlock Holmes in there, he wasn't supposed to be there. It's something the artist did as just a background cameo that nobody caught. And because he wouldn't have been there. You know, if he had, he would have been a character in the story, because Bruce would be like, "Hey, man, how's it going?" But you know, mentioning the movie, I think, is a good segue, because one of the things about this film is that you know, because we also got to see the film version. I don't know if you've seen it yet, Doc, but like the film version, I thought made an interesting choice by making a major rewrite to the story, because otherwise they would have had to have like a part 1 and a part 2, and they took elements of both, combined them in, and just focused on the main story with Jack the Ripper, Batman chasing against Jack the Ripper, and some characters were changed, like the girlfriend character from the comics ends up becoming Selena Kyle, and in some other peripheral characters like Poison Ivy into the movie, and they ended up, quite to my surprise, changing the identity of Jack the Ripper in the movie. I don't want to, we're not going to spoil who that is, but up to halfway through the movie, I thought they made it so well that I thought it was still the same guy, which of course it isn't. But I thought that was really neat. That even as a reader, I was tricked for a little while into thinking that they had kept the same character.
I found out about the movie when you mentioned it to me, Woody, when we were going through this.
Right. Yeah.
It's one of those things that you don't catch on all the time. Like I said, people that know me, I'm the tabletop RPG guy. We could talk about that all day, and I know what's going on in that world. This is new to me, and it's actually been an interesting ride with you two, because I see things differently reading the comics after talking with you guys than I would normally if I was just reading comics on my own, which another reason I love this. But this Gotham by Gaslight, somebody did ask on here if it was a steampunk Batman. It is not. It definitely doesn't have all the technology that Batman today does, but that was one of the things I loved about it, was they stayed true to the era it was written for. So,
and
sure,
that's actually one of the major changes in the movie, is that they did give him the tech. Like he does have a motorcycle, and he does have the grappling gun, and it has a couple of things that he wouldn't. Like, it's all kind of doable for the time period, but it's like he does have some familiar things.
Yeah, but it's not steampunk. And I would enjoy steampunk either way, but I think I told Woody, I think I told both of you, we were talking offline about this. The way that the art was done in like an older style comic was the best way I know how to describe it. Really, for this comic, really helped me along with the story. It helped me visualize it. And I don't know if it did the same for you guys, or you guys probably as artists and storytellers see it differently than I do, but I thought it was amazing.
Yeah.
No, I think that's definitely something to be said, Doc, is that there are times within stories where you are kind of kicked out of it because you just can't get into it. It just, something just feels off. Mm-hmm. But I felt like it had that true spirit of like what it was going for. Something that was very much within the time period of written for like a Batman version of Sherlock Holmes. This was something that could be within that universe, no problem.
Well, I actually don't like it when Batman is part of the Justice League. I mean, he kind of has to be, but like it's kind of like my gripe with the new Doctor Who, where every single season the universe is in danger, and you can only go to that well so many times before you start wishing for the old days when it was just the BBC, terrible special effects, and just old, just regular adventures through time and space. And, this is the way I like Batman, where he should be a street-level character dealing with people, like street-level threats, and people that are at his level. And when you get into too much with the character who doesn't have superpowers, and you're getting into too many superhuman opponents, or like when they did the new Batman run, it started with a plane crashing in Gotham, and somehow Batman managed to get on the plane and was going to try to, and out of nowhere came up with little rocket thrusters to try to steer the plane, and it's just like he could apparently jump the Batmobile high enough to leap onto it. And it's like, what? You've got super speed dial. He can be there in a couple seconds. What the hell are you doing? It's just ridiculous. And he did it knowing he was going to die. And of course, he didn't die. Somebody saved the plane, whatever. But and I understand what they were doing, but it's just, that kind of stuff completely destroys my suspension of disbelief. And, like this kind of a Batman is definitely what Batman should be doing, in my opinion.
Oh, come on. I think what he did was he used shark repellent to make sure that he didn't jump the shark while he was saving the day.
If he had airplane repellent, then sure, but...
I did find it interesting.
No, it's just...
when he goes to the I think it's the second part of the Gotham Gotham by Gaslight that I was reading. When he was on the hand glider and he explained why it was working, I was like, that's kind of interesting, because it was like they were foreshadowing these people were going to be like, not on that time, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. So, yeah, no, it was, I think that possibly the hang glider scene was probably like the weakest part of the plot. But, and as Alex said, the first half of the story was definitely the stronger story. But, I definitely enjoyed them both. In fact, the thing I liked most about it was the fact that traditional Batman villains weren't in the book, and it dealt with something else, some other kind of character. Though the Joker cameo was pretty awesome, and the way that was set up was just great. And I would love to have seen how he would have met the Joker. And maybe if the movie turns out well enough, we might actually see that adventure at some point if they do a sequel to the movie.
Well, with definitely the way that they set up the movie, it definitely has some of the characters really capable of actually being within this version of Batman.
Use the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, totally. Well, not Poison Ivy.
Did I hear a ghost tell you something about the Wi-Fi?
No. There's something else. Something happened in the background. Don't worry about it. The dog came in and pushed my door open, and then came to check me out, then left. So then, it lets ghosts into my room.
Rough.
I will say one of the big negatives I had in this, and I agree with you that the first story was stronger. I actually have two negatives. One that I actually wrote down, and one that I just thought of. The Joker cameo was great, but I hated that it had nothing to do with the whole thing. I was like so disappointed as a reader in that it was right there and it didn't happen, which is also great because it makes me want to read whatever one comes out next, because I want to see that Joker and what Joker looks like in this world. The only other thing, and I think I told you guys this, that I hated was the very end of the book. They really just shoved all this Batman mythos into the last 2 pages as hard as they could. And it threw me off. It was the ending could have been just a little bit better for me.
I think. Yeah. Oh yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Alex.
Oh, I was just gonna say, Doc. It's like the Joker part kind of reminds me of within filmmaking of in the first act, if you find a gun in a drawer, you better be using that gun at the end of the movie, or otherwise it's kind of like, what was the point? 3 a.m. I'm opening my fridge and going, wow, the character should have used this within the story.
Well, for one thing, background of this was that DC has what they call the Elseworlds line, which is like their counterpart to Marvel's What If. Basically, it deals with alternate universes focusing on their characters. And this was actually the first Elseworlds story ever. It was the first book they printed that dealt with an alternate version of Batman, and it ended up being a huge success. And that might be why the second one is not as strong, because when it was successful, they would have said, well, do you have more? And he may have rushed to get it out and not been quite ready with the story, as much as like he did with his first one, where he probably had time and inspiration. And then, of course, it gives birth to an entire line of other stories, like Superman Red Sun, where Superman's lands in Russia instead of Kansas. But it's like that's kind of like where it comes about, and I think that might be why the second half isn't as strong, and why they may not have cared as much. It's like the same reason why sequels sometimes suck, is that they rush to make the money, not to make a quality product.
Yeah, I think a lot of comics have that I've been reading, and I don't want to badmouth anything, because I think they all have good things, and I love them. But I really think that sometimes they just get lazy on what they do because they're cashing in on the names. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's totally fair. There's plenty of superhero stories where the book's going to sell if you put Spider-Man on it, or Batman, or Superman. So it's like, you have a little more freedom, but then also, yeah, like you said, the guy could get complacent as well, because he's at the top of his game. It's not like Chris Claremont, where he's like delivered every story the best he could, and of course it was the best-selling book ever during its time. So it's actually funny. This guy that we know, that we run into at cons a lot, he has this opinion he makes, which I think is quite correct, that the lower you are on the totem pole in the industry, the product has to be. And at the top, when you have the money and resources and advertising revenue, you're to an extent, you're going to be successful regardless. Even the worst selling book at Marvel that gets canceled is more successful than any indie creator is ever going to be.
Okay. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I was seeing if Alex had anything on that one.
Yeah. So,
okay. We're in our last couple of minutes, so final thoughts on any of the three books that we have talked about today. Let's start with Woody. Go ahead.
I love Darth Vader. I definitely going to give that one a thumbs up. I don't know that the Black Panthers is one that would suck me to keep reading, but if you want to learn about Black Panther, it's a good jumping on point. I think anybody could start reading at that point, in the series, and get a feel for what's going on. And the nice thing about Darth Vader is he's still pretty close to the beginning of the series, so you could jump in at the beginning for sure at this point. But it does seem to be like any book in the Darth Vader series is compelling enough to keep you going. And as far as Gotham and Gaslight, I mean, certainly part 2 is not as strong as the first part, but it is still like a really good Batman story. I really enjoyed reading it, and I would definitely give that one a thumbs up as well. And I really enjoyed the movie. I know a lot of people, there's obviously controversy with the rewrites, but the movie, I've loved every DC Direct animated film I've seen, and I certainly did not feel like I wasted my money on this one when I bought it. I would recommend it.
Alex?
So, within Batman by Gaslight, I'll give it, for the first comic book, I'll give it 3 gaslights out of 3 gaslights.
Okay.
Story number 2, I would say, only mostly because of the art, I'll give it 1.5 gaslights. So, 1 and 1 broken. And then as the movie goes, I'll give it 3 gaslights. I felt like, I was entertained. I liked some of the direction that they went. Didn't feel like I was bored during part of watching it. As Darth Vader, definitely that was a Order 66 of getting this book.
Mm-hmm.
Wipe out all your funds and definitely get this.
Fortunately, you can get the trade.
All right, so that's all the time that we have. I don't mean to cut you off, Alex. We got to get it rolling. Thanks everybody for coming.
Yep.
30 minutes of comic book review every Sunday here at Miniature Dragon Comic Review. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at MD Comic Review. We'll put up some pictures. I'll put up what I'm trying to do on my end. Again, not such a big deal. You can email us at mdreviewcast@gmail.com. So it's MD Reviewcast is where you get us. The at MD Reviewcast works on any Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook to find us. But send us emails. Tell us what you're thinking. Also, we have a Discord channel. The Discord channel is going to be open for all the comic books and for people to join and have other questions going on. We'll see you next Sunday. But
hey, if I can jump in real
sure.
quick, Alex and I also have indie comics we create. So you can check out our Cyberpunk series that we do at conwaytheseries.com. And if all goes according to plan, on Monday at countermay.com, you will find our new fantasy series getting started.
No, that's awesome. Please go ahead and do that. I just want to say, read more comics, and as always, keep it nerdy and live your dreams.
Thank you.